we have any men joining us. Welcome back to the Soft But Savage Method, Conversations in Becoming. My name is Mickey, and this podcast is for women navigating life's biggest transitions and learning how to rebuild with confidence, self-trust, and a whole lot more peace. Today is episode 3, and we are going to be talking about confidence and self-trust. So for me, confidence isn't really what I was missing. It was self-trust. So for years, I thought confidence is what was missing. I thought I didn't have any confidence. I just thought if I could be more confident, I would speak up more. If I felt more confident, I would make decisions faster. I would make better decisions. If I were more confident, I wouldn't second guess myself all the time. How many of you can relate to that whole second guessing every decision that you make? Eventually though, I realized something sort of surprising. So the women that come across as the most confident, they aren't the ones who have everything figured out. They're just the ones who trust themselves enough to know that things will work out. And that's a different mindset, and it really changes a lot of things. That's when I finally realized self-confidence and self-trust, those are two different things. So the first thing that I want to make clear today is that confidence really depends on evidence. So it's built through repetition. And confidence usually will come after experience. So when you learn to drive, when you learn to cook, if you've done public speaking, making sourdough. So you weren't confident the first time? Probably. You became confident though through repetition. So the more you did it, the more comfortable you were, and the more confident you felt in what you were doing. So like most people, public speaking was not my thing. I was a nervous wreck. When I was in high school or college, I hated having to do any sort of presentation where we had to get up and speak in front of the class. It just was terrifying to me. I was always really shy as a child, so it took a long time for me to get past that. I mean, well out of college before I got past that. So it was really, really difficult. But at one of my jobs, a coworker and our boss wanted us to be presenters at a conference that we went to every year. So she and I put together a program. We practiced, of course, over and over and over. We did the presentation at the conference, and was I nervous? Absolutely. But we presented sessions at several more conferences over the next few years, and each one I felt much less stressed and much more confident in what I was doing. We also put together a program at our job where we were training our project managers. So every month we did 3 separate presentations of this training on whatever the topic was. We had a group. Our total group was relatively small, maybe 25 people. But we presented 3 different time slots every single month for about 3 years. And so every time I got up in front of that group of people, even though I knew them, every time the nerves got less, the production got a little better, and that feeling of confidence really started to grow. After my ex-husband and I moved to a farming community late in our marriage, I also started a YouTube channel about homesteading. And so that experience really helped me be more comfortable speaking in front of people. Yes, I was just speaking to a camera, but it was still nerve-wracking. And then having to watch and also listen to, yikes, myself on that recording, again, really helped. So if you compare my first video to one of my last videos, they're going to be vastly different in terms of my comfort how well it was put together, and just my nerves. So anything that you continue to do is going to help build your self-confidence. The more I practiced that skill of public speaking, the more comfortable I became, and the better the whole thing kind of ended up. The same is true of any new thing that you start. Confidence is often built by doing something over and over and over till you become successful at it, and then continuing to do it successfully until you believe that you can do it again and again and again. That's just the process of helping to build that confidence. Now, our second point is that self-trust comes before that evidence, right? So we've created the evidence that yes, we can successfully do this because we have this backlog of whatever number of times we've done it or whatever process we've used to know that we can do it. But at the beginning, we had to trust ourselves enough to know that, yeah, we're probably gonna mess up, but it's gonna be okay because we're gonna keep learning. So many of life's really big decisions, we can't wait until we have confidence. We have to just make that decision and do the best we can. So self-trust tells us, hey, I don't know how this is gonna turn out, but I trust myself that I can handle whatever happens. So those of you who have given birth, whether you've given birth or whether you've had a C-section, the first time you had no idea what you're doing. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter how many classes you go to. It's a new experience for you. But, well, partly because we don't have a choice, but also because you're like, you know what? I'm going to be this child's mother, and I need to be able to handle this piece of it, right? I need to be able to do this, even if I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how things are going to work out. So, other examples, leaving your marriage. When I left my marriage, I had big plans. I knew what I wanted to happen. I knew what I thought was going to happen. That didn't mean any of that happened. I made mistakes. I had problems. I still have problems. But I trusted myself enough to know that I was going to be able to make whatever decisions I needed to make that work. Whenever you start a new business, that is scary. If you've never started a new business in any form, will I get the clients that I need? Will I be able to manage the finances of a company? Do I understand enough about how this whole process works? You have to trust that you've done the work you can ahead of time, and that you know that you can figure it out if something new comes up. Taking a new job, that's always scary. Setting a boundary, we talked about that in the last episode. Setting boundaries, particularly when you first start doing it, is scary and it can be hard. But when you don't have experience yet, that confidence about that particular thing is not there because you've never done it. You don't have the confidence to say, hey, I know I can do this because I've done it before. What you're doing is saying, I trust myself enough to know that I'm going to figure it out. And if I don't figure it out, whatever the situation is, that's okay. But it takes your self-trust. That's what has to lead this whole process. Your decisions cannot always wait for you to have that confidence that you may wish that you have. Our third point today is that women very frequently are taught not to trust themselves. Not just that we're not taught to do it, but we are actively taught not to trust our own abilities, our own way of thinking, and our own decisions. And that is really sad. Somewhere along the way, we kind of get it into our heads that everybody else's opinion about our life, about our decisions, everybody else's opinion matters more than our own. So many times when we are making a decision, we don't trust our ability to make the right decision for ourselves. So we ask our friends, we ask our family, we search Google, we watch YouTube videos, we read books, we ask strangers on social media. I mean, I've seen things on, I'm sure you all have seen people asking the most random questions on a social media platform, and it makes you think, why are you asking people that you don't even know, right? So, but what we're looking for is somebody else who's going to tell us what we should be doing, right? We want somebody else to validate that we're going to make the right decision. But here, this is a really interesting thing, is most of the time, we already know what we want to do. We know what we think is the best. We know the answer. So we're not looking for information. We're not looking for input. We're looking for permission. We're waiting for somebody else to say, yes, you made the right choice. Now you can go ahead and do that thing, right? We don't want that. We want to be able to trust ourselves enough to know that we don't need that other person's opinion. We can make that decision ourselves and know that right or wrong, we're going to figure it out. So I can't even tell you how many times I've done this. I will make a decision in my head. I know what I'm going to do, but I will still ask my sisters, my kids, my coworkers, my friends, and yes, sometimes Google, before I decide that, okay, yeah, I guess it's okay that I've made that decision. I've done it in relationships. I've done it with jobs. I've done it with so many things. I did this in my marriage when I was making the decision to leave it. I've done this when changing careers. I did this when I started my business. And I did it when I started this podcast, right? I asked people, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this makes sense? Do you think I should do this? And really, I was going to do it regardless. I just wanted somebody else to say, yes, you're making the right choice. There are times, though, where I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and then I got everybody else's opinion, and then I wavered. Maybe I'm not making the right choice. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe this is not the right time. Maybe this is a bad idea. Whatever that might be. But I finally realized, though, that every time I ignored my own intuition and I followed along with what someone else thought about my life and my choices, I felt really disconnected from myself. You know, when you ask other people, they give you an answer that you don't agree with, but you do it anyway, that can be really, really hard on you. So as I started to trust my own judgment, even if it was scary, even if I was doing something where everybody else thought I was crazy, but I was convinced that that was the right thing to do, every time I trusted myself, then I started to become a little bit more confident in my ability to navigate my own life and my own choices. And that is what we want to do. That's what self-trust is, really. It's not believing that you're always going to make the perfect decision, because none of us are perfect, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make decisions where we think, oh my gosh, I should have listened to the other person. But you can't know that ahead of time. And you need to be able to rely on yourself. But it's having that self-trust that says, you know what, no matter what happens, I know that I'll be able to handle it, no matter what. So the fourth point we want to talk about today is that self-trust then is also built through small promises to ourselves. Every time you make a promise to yourself and you keep it, that is a vote for self-trust. So many of us struggle with doing what we say we're going to do when it comes to trusting ourselves and honoring our own needs. I can easily and honestly tell my friend, my sister, my kids, you said you were tired, stay home. That's what you need. It's okay. But when it's me, then I start negotiating with myself. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I didn't really want to go because I'm so tired, but I'll be fine. I'll be fine. It'll be okay. It's just a few hours. Already committed, already said I was gonna go. So I guess I'll go. I don't want to disappoint anybody. You know, this person or that person was kind of counting on me to be there. So I don't want to upset them. I can rest tomorrow. It'll be fine. Okay, but somehow that compassion that I can just freely give to everyone else, I'm not able to give that to myself. It just disappears when it comes to me. And isn't that so crazy? I know that so many of you can relate to that. And it's when you look at it from the outside like that, and when you say it out loud, you think, why am I doing that? That seems insane. But we do it. But, you know what? Every time that we ignore our own needs, then we are breaking a promise that we made to ourselves. We don't want to do that. Or we try to convince ourselves that everybody else's needs are more important than our own. And I don't know about you, but most moms, I think, can probably feel this. You know, we've always put our kids first. A lot of times we put our spouse first. We put our parents first, our friends first, our siblings first. And every time that we do that, every time we try to convince ourselves or do convince ourselves that everybody else's needs matter more than our own. If this person's needs and that person's needs and this person, if they always matter more than the needs that I have for myself, then I'm sending myself a message, right? We're sending ourselves a message that says, I'm not as important as everybody else. My needs don't matter. On the other hand, though, anytime that we follow through on something that we've said, whether we take a walk because we said that's what we wanted to do, we rest because we're tired and we need that rest, we honor some boundary that we set with someone else, anytime we really just do what we said we were going to do for ourselves, then we're sending a different message. That message is now, instead of saying that my needs are not important, we're sending the message that says, I can count on me. I am important and I can count on myself. That is how self-trust is built. It's not going to be built through one big life-changing event, right? It's not one thing that's going to flip that switch and say, oh, I trust myself. It's those small moments that are repeated on a regular basis that start to let your nervous system know that you can trust yourself, that your word matters. So the last thing, self-trust changes everything. It really does. Confidence grows when you succeed. Self-trust grows when you show up for yourself. Once you begin honoring your own needs by trusting yourself, it's amazing how much easier things start to become. Decisions are easier because you're not waiting for everybody else's opinion before you make a choice. You stop asking your sister, your daughter, your cousin, the lady you talk to at the mailbox every day, right? You stop asking everybody else what they think, and you make the decision that you feel is best for you. You don't wait for their permission. Instead, you start asking yourself a different question. What do I think? What do I think? Boundaries become easier because you trust that you're setting them for a reason. These are healthy boundaries. These are not boundaries that you're setting to poke at somebody, which sometimes people will think that's what they are. You know, this is not about controlling somebody else. They're about honoring what you need to stay healthy and peaceful and true to yourself. So We will most likely spend a lot more time talking about boundaries in future episodes. But when you trust yourself, it becomes so much easier to honor those boundaries that you set. Your relationships will also become healthier because now you're not expecting that person to just guess what you need. If you don't tell them, they are not going to know. You learn that you can communicate honestly, and you trust yourself enough to hold on to what you've asked for. Not everyone's going to like your boundaries, and not every relationship is going to survive your boundaries or your growth. But the relationships that do, they're the ones that are going to become more honest, more respectful, and more authentic. That's what we're looking for. And then something surprising kind of happens along the way. All of a sudden that confidence starts to show up. Not because you chased it. That's not what we were doing. We weren't chasing confidence. But because every time that you trusted yourself, every time you followed through on your word, every time you made a decision or honored your boundaries, you collected another piece of evidence that says, I can count on me. I can count. So confidence was never the destination. That's not what we were trying to get to. It's a byproduct of everything else that we're doing. So our confidence is going to grow anytime we succeed, right? We started our sourdough starter and we made our first perfect, beautiful loaf. Okay, now we have confidence that we can do that again. Self-trust grows every time you show up for yourself, regardless of the outcome. No matter what happens, your self-trust is going to grow because you have held to your word and held that boundary and stuck to what your needs are. So before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with just a couple of questions to think about. You don't have to answer them right now, obviously. Just be honest with yourself. So the first one, where in your life are you waiting for confidence before you take action? What do you think would change then if you trusted yourself enough to just take that next step anyway? Okay, you don't need to know exactly how everything is going to work out. You don't need guarantees. You don't need everyone else's approval. Sometimes the next step is not about becoming more confident. It's about becoming someone who trusts herself enough to just take it. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening or watching. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me through the Soft But Savage method on both Facebook and Instagram, where I share tools and support for women navigating life's big transitions. Until next time, keep becoming.